Hey everybody, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and today I thought it would be fun to talk about movies and TV that I loved in 2023. So we're at the end of the year and we're basically just watching Christmas movies that we've seen a million times. So I don't think I'm gonna watch anything new that's gonna blow my mind or anything. So I thought, why not go ahead and do a sort of wrap up of the TV and movies that I watched this year that I loved. So these are mostly in order of like when I watched them through the year. So let's kick it off with Wednesday. I did not really plan on watching this. I kind of thought I wouldn't like it. I can't say I'm like a huge Addams Family fan, but I did love the movies growing up. But I didn't think I was gonna like the TV show, so I kind of went into it reluctantly. I was willing to give it an episode or two, and it ended up like just completely sucking me in, which surprised me. I don't know, I just thought it was a lot of fun. I don't have a lot of commentary. I think it wasn't like my favorite thing I watched this year, but it ended up being way better than I thought it was going to be. If they never do anything else with it, if that is the only season we get, I can live with that. I think it worked really well. It had a cohesive plot. The characters were really interesting. I really enjoy stories set in like schools for magical children, schools for like supernatural children, that sort of thing. So that's always a trope that will work for me. I really enjoy just the dry humor that Wednesday has. Didn't love the romance stuff because I just don't see Wednesday being in a relationship. So I could have done without some of that, but I still really enjoyed it. Next, I want to talk about The Last of Us. Now, this one, again, reluctantly watched, and I would say I didn't love it. It didn't blow me away. But for what it was, I enjoyed it, and I think for me, it was the dynamic between, I can't even remember anybody's names. I am so sorry. I'm gonna not be able to remember names of characters. But I really liked the dynamic between the two leads. I think their chemistry is what made the show, because I don't love zombie things. Like, there are very few anything in media that I've enjoyed. I think I can maybe list all of that on one hand. And so going into another zombie show, I was like, I'll give it an episode. And honestly, I had to give it 3 episodes because that 3rd episode is what got me. Before that, I was like, after this episode, if I'm not into it, I'm leaving. And that 3rd episode, oh my gosh, that episode didn't even have the 2 leads in it. Or if it did, it was like for just a minute. And that's what like really hooked me. And then after that, I was just in it. But it's still a zombie show. It's still very like typical of the zombie genre, but the characters are what made it for me. So I don't know if there's gonna be another season. I'll maybe watch it. But again, I kind of feel like I could live with the way it is, as is. I like an ambiguous ending. I thought the ending was perfect if that's all they ever get. If that's the only season we ever have of it, I feel like I can live with it because the way it ended worked for me. But I know that there's more in the game. I've never played it, but I'm aware that there's more story, so I assume. I think it did well, so I assume there will be more. But yeah, this was just a very character-driven show. There is still a lot of action, but I feel like it's the characters. Their connection and their chemistry is what made it work. Also, is it Ellie? Is the main character Ellie? I think the actress, Bella Ramsey, is great, and I just thought her portrayal of the character was really great, so just really enjoyed that. The next thing I want to talk about is another TV series. So far, it's all been TV series. There are some movies in here. The next TV series, though, is Kindred. This was just like everything I had hoped it would be. I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler several years ago, and it just has really stuck with me. It's a book that I think everyone should read. I just really hoped that this show would capture the essence of the book as much as possible, and I think they did a really good job. Like, it was very well done. I really hope that we get more, because I feel like there's more story here that we could explore. So I really, really hope that there's another season. But again, like, it did work really well as is, if that is all we get. But like, I hope, because there have been so many shows that like I've loved that only got one season, or that just were abruptly canceled and left us on a cliffhanger. So I'm hopeful. But this is a story about a woman who has this almost like an illness, I don't know what you call it, where she gets like pulled back into time, and it is against her will. She has no control over it, and she just gets sucked back. And her time travel is connected to an ancestor in her past, and he is a plantation owner's son, and she is a black woman, so she's being sucked back into the antebellum South. It's very harrowing and very disturbing, but also just really beautifully told, and like, this story is so good and so interesting, and there's so much to explore. So like, again, I really hope there's another season, but like, I highly recommend checking it. I think this was on Hulu. All right, the next TV show I want to talk about is one Sarah begged me to watch it because she watched it and she really wanted to talk to somebody about it. I watched Alice in Borderland. This is a Korean TV series. It's 2 seasons, and I believe it's a complete story, so there's not going to be any more. So I don't even begin to know how to explain this show without spoiling anything. So you're basically following these characters who find themselves like sort of almost time warped into this weird universe where they're the only ones there. They're in the city. One second it's crowded, and then something happens, and then the next second the city is empty except for them. And they're trying to figure out what's happening, and they have to keep playing these games. And the games get increasingly more disturbing and dangerous. And the only way to survive is to win the games. And oh my gosh, me and my husband went in really reluctantly, because I know he doesn't like foreign TV shows, especially if they're subtitled. This one we watched dubbed because I thought that would work better for him, but I was reluctant because I hate dubbed anything because it almost always sounds wrong. So I was like really not expecting to get sucked in, but the dub was actually really good, and like I was so absorbed in the story. I thought it was really interesting, really compelling. I had no idea what was happening, like where it was going. The characters are all really great. It was really well done, really interesting, and yeah, I think more people should watch it because I also want to talk about it. I had to call Sarah like right away and be like, oh my gosh, okay, so here's what's happening. And we had to chat about it. Next TV series I watched was Daisy Jones and the Six. I loved the book. I read the book this year because I knew the TV series was coming out and it looked really good, so I wanted to read the book first, and I loved the book. So I was really excited for the TV show, and it lived up to my expectations. Like, one of my favorite songs of the year is from the TV show. Reading the book, the thing that I wanted the most was to hear the music, because like, it's really hard to read a story about a band and not have the music. Like, I wanted to know what was happening. Like, it gives you the lyrics, but that's not the same. So I was excited, and the music was so fun. This is a story about a band, and it's sort of a little bit like Fleetwood Mac-ish, but not, but also it's kind of, and the music is so good. Like, I loved it. I want to watch it again, just to re-experience it and listen to the music some more. The next show I want to talk about is Shadow and Bone Season 2, and I'm still like depressed that this is probably all we're gonna get. It got canceled for some stupid reason. I've not read the Shadow and Bone books. I did read the first Shadow and Bone book, and I liked it. I just never completed the series, so now I guess I have to complete the series so that I know how it ends. I thought this was just so good. Ben Barnes is really what really pulled me in. Like, Ben Barnes, he's so good and enjoyable to look upon. But like, I really liked the story. I thought the whole thing was like very compelling. I struggle to read fantasy, but I really enjoy a good fantasy TV show because I think it's easier to get into the world building that way. That's usually the thing that I struggle the most with, is like figuring out the universe of the book I'm reading. So like having it on TV just makes that so much easier. So like I really love good fantasy TV, and we don't have enough of it. So getting to see Shadow and Bone on the screen was a lot of fun. I really like the unique premise. I like the characters are all really fun. Not a huge fan of love triangles, but I feel like what they did with that in Shadow and Bone almost works for me. So I don't know. I find that show so much fun, and I'm so sad that they canceled it. I'm hopeful that maybe someone else will pick it up. Okay, this next show is one that I made my husband watch. He didn't really want to watch it, but I thought it looked really fun, and that's Glow. This had 3 seasons, and again, it ended on a cliffhanger, and I so desperately want more. Like, I really hope that at some point it gets picked back up, but I don't think that it will. I think the pandemic ruined it, and I'll never get to know what happens next. This is a show set in the 1980s about a woman's wrestling TV show. And that was the premise that got me. Like, I was like, oh, this sounds like it could potentially be fun. And I was expecting like almost a sitcom kind of a situation, but it wasn't. This show has depth. The characters are all so interesting, and like I want to know more about every single one of them. Their relationships with each other and the way they pull the show off is so much fun. It's a comedy, but it's also a drama. And there were moments where I was laughing hysterically, and there were moments that made me cry. And I just thought this show was so incredible. Like, this might be my favorite show of the year. I haven't really thought that through. I have a couple on here that are like top tier, and this one is absolutely top tier. So much fun. I highly recommend, even though it does end on a little bit of a cliffhanger, even though we don't get a full conclusion to the story, I still think it is absolutely worth checking out. This year, we got a conclusion to The Last Kingdom. I have been obsessing over this show for years. I think The Last Kingdom is highly underrated. I never hear people talk about it, but it's so good. If you like historical dramas, this is a great one. The premise is that you're in like the early 800s-ish. I think it's like between 800 and 900, somewhere in there. And it's early Britain before it is a united kingdom. So you've got all these little kingdoms in Great Britain, all kind of fighting against each other. They're constantly being attacked by the Danes. So it's really good. You're following Uhtred, son of Uhtred, who is like this guy who is caught in the middle of everything. He's a Saxon, but he was raised by the Danes. So he's like sort of in both worlds, but he cannot fit in either of them. So I loved this TV show. We got Seven Kings Must Die, which is a film, so it's a full-length movie to kind of end the series, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I really want to rewatch it again. It's been a little bit, like, I think we went back and watched the whole show again at the beginning of the year in anticipation of the movie, so it would all be fresh in our minds, and I'm glad we did that, but now I want to watch it again. It's really fun. If you enjoyed the show, the movie's great. Another movie we watched this year was Scream 6. I have been a fan of the Scream franchise since it came out, so I've been interested in like what happens next. I kind of hope though that they stop where they're at. I liked the movie a lot, and it was a lot of fun, but there were some things that I was just like, okay, this is starting to become redundant. Also, my pet peeve with this movie, horror movies in general, but absolutely this one, but if you're getting stabbed repeatedly, you should not be able to get up and walk around. Like, there was some scenes that I was like, should she not be in the hospital? Like, how is she walking? How can you keep going after being repeatedly stabbed in the stomach? Like, at that point, I'm concerned that you're not going to survive, yet you're up and walking and pretending like nothing happened. I don't know. that seemed a little bit silly. The story itself was fun though, but again, I kind of feel like at this point in the franchise, there's nowhere else to go. Like, I don't know what you could possibly do to keep this fresh. I feel like we're at the point in the franchise where it's gonna start getting too silly for it to be believable. But this one was still fun, so like I don't know. It's on my list, I enjoyed it, but I do feel kind of like it should probably end here before they get bad. Like, I don't know, I worry when a franchise starts to go on too long. Just because it's successful doesn't mean you should keep going. I think it was in May that like 3 of my favorite shows were all on at the same time. The Marvelous Mrs Maisel ended. We got season 5 this year, and it was the conclusion of the series. I have loved The Marvelous Mrs Maisel. I think it's really fun. And it's not like there's not a lot of shows that are about Jews in that way. At least not that I've seen. Granted, I wish there were more Jewish actors portraying the Jewish characters, but you know, you get what you get. I thought it was a really fun show though, and I thought the conclusion was really good. I enjoyed like the way it flashed back and forth in time. I always like that in a story. I know not a lot of people do though. I'm an oddball there. That I enjoy jumping around in time to tell a story. And so I liked that aspect of the finale and seeing like how she was able to achieve her goal of fame whilst also seeing like her in the future, like already like super famous, and like how she got there. I don't know. I liked that aspect of the story a lot. I liked seeing everybody in the future and like where they ended up. I really enjoyed it. And I'm sad that it's over, but I can still rewatch it. Next, I watched Yellow Jackets season 2. I have such high hopes for this show, you guys. If you haven't seen Yellow Jackets yet, I highly recommend. It's really weird and you're going to be confused. But it's worth it, I hope. I hope. I don't know if it's worth it yet, but I'm hoping that we get some good payoff. So this is a show about a group of girls on a soccer team who are on a plane to a match. I don't know where they're going. I don't remember, but their plane crashes and they are trapped in the wilderness and it's winter. So there's cannibalism. It's a premise that I think is really interesting. The way that this all like happens is so bizarre and creepy, and I love that. I love the supernatural element to it, even though we're not 100% sure there is a supernatural element. There's a weird cult thing happening. The characters are all like their younger selves that are on this isolated place, like trapped, and you're following the adult character survivors and like how this has affected them and how it's still affecting them. Oh, it's so much fun. So I really enjoyed season 1. Season 2 was even better. And I'm really hopeful that like the next season, things are going to start like coming together more, because there's a lot of like threads of story happening. There's a lot of setup happening. So I'm hoping we get some payoff in the next season. But I'm really, really enjoying it. It's maybe one of my favorite shows so far that I've watched recently. And then we got a conclusion this year to The Great. I loved this show. Season 3 was really good, but such a different turn from the first 2 seasons. But I loved it. But like, I didn't expect the way things panned out in the 3rd season, but it ended up being so good. So this is a show about Katherine the Great, and it's sort of a comedic, like, history show. Like, it's very inaccurate. It's very silly. The characters are all over the top and goofy, but it's so good. Like, the chemistry between the 2 leads is just, oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. The dialogue is really fun. Oh my God, I loved it. It's one of my favorite shows ever. Definitely in my like top 10 of all time. The third season was so different from the first two, and it takes this turn that I don't want to give away anything, so I'm not going to, but it like the whole thing flips, and it's just so good, so compelling, such great TV. Then another one that qualifies as favorite of the year was A Small Light. This, I think, was on Disney. Is it Disney or Hulu? Might have been both, honestly. This is a show about Miep Gies, who was one of the people that helped to hide the Frank family during World War II, and it was really, really good. Like, I've seen a lot of Anne Frank things in my day. Like, I've seen several Anne Frank movies. I've seen an Anne Frank play. I know the story, but this was such a different way to come at it, and I really enjoyed Miep as a character, as a human. I really liked seeing it from her perspective. It was so good. She's amazing, by the way. Like, what an amazing person. Highly recommend this one. I watched it twice. I watched it with my husband, and then I turned around and I watched it with Regina because I thought she would like it. She just read Anne Frank's diary, the graphic novel version, so I thought it was a good time to put that on, and she really enjoyed it too. I cried my eyes out, and it was very moving and very beautiful. Like, really great representation of a historical drama. Like, I love historical dramas. I watch a lot of them, and this one was really top tier. Then for something completely different, I watched Succession. We watched the whole series this year, and I did not expect to like it as much as I did. Again, I went into this like, I'll give it an episode or two. I knew vaguely that it was like, this is a show about messy rich people, which I was like, okay, it could be entertaining. And it might be a nice palate cleanser after watching something so sad. So I thought we would go ahead and give it a shot. And we got so sucked in. Like, I don't usually like stories with no likable characters, but it was like a train wreck you couldn't stop watching. Succession is sort of a comedy, sort of a drama, sort of a lot of things. It's all over the place, but it was really fun to watch. The characters are all so messy and so unlikable. Like, I despise every single one of them. And yet, occasionally I'd find myself rooting for somebody and being like, why am I, what? No, I don't like him. He's terrible. It was still really, really good TV. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. Messy people doing messy things. Being people that you really, really want to see fail, but also you want to see them, like, beat each other at their own game. Like, I don't even know. It was a good time. It was fun to watch. Then a movie we watched this year was Renfield. I knew about this vaguely. I'd heard about it. My husband loves anything to do with Dracula and vampires. And so when I heard of what this was, I thought he might enjoy it. So we put it on one night, and it was so funny. It was so much fun to watch. I would watch it again. And I don't usually do that with vampire movies. Most vampire things I end up not loving. It's always been a trope that I expect so much more from than what I usually get, which is weird. I love vampires, but I usually hate vampire media. But Renfield was so silly. I loved Nicholas Hoult so much in The Great that I've been kind of like, I need to watch more things with him in it. So when I saw he was like the lead in Renfield, I thought he'd be great at that, and I was correct. He is so much fun in this movie. And Nicolas Cage is always fun. Like, he's so over the top in this that it's like perfect. Then another TV show that we really enjoyed this year was Silo. This was, I think, on Apple TV. And I thought this was great. I have never read the books that this is based on, but I need to because I was really engrossed in this show, which I thought was interesting because, like, I don't always like things that are so, like, dark, which I'm not explaining well. What I love TV shows and movies and things that are bright, things that are set, like, outdoors, things that have a lot, like, vibrant colors. I don't even know if I'm explaining my thought process here. And this show is all set in a literal silo. You're in this, like, dark, enclosed place, no natural light. It's very, like, dingy and grim. And it's like a murder mystery, and you're trying to solve this mystery of what's happening. And it's very dark and very gritty and very dystopian, but so compelling and so fun to watch. I hope there's more. I really hope so. I know it's like a trilogy, I think. This was like the first part, so I'm hoping we get at least 3 seasons. I want the whole story. I'm gonna need to read the books. I probably should do that. Then we watched The Winter King, which is was made by the same people, I believe, as The Last Kingdom. It's by the same author. It's another Bernard Cornwell adaptation. This one is like a King Arthur story, and it's more like a historical, like, what if this was real? This is what that would look like, kind of a thing. So a lot less magic and that sort of thing, but lots of druids. So there is sort of some magic happening, but like more like druid magic. If druids were like what they would realistically have been able to do. So not real magic, which was, I think, an interesting take on it. I really liked the historical aspect of it. I'm always a sucker for any kind of historical drama specifically to do with England. I wouldn't quite call myself an Anglophile, but I do enjoy learning about English history, British history, all of that. So I thought this was really good. It was a really interesting story. I've always enjoyed the King Arthur legends, so I thought this was really great. I'm hopeful that they do more with it and we get like the whole trilogy, because this was just the first part of a trilogy. So I'm hoping, again, 3 seasons will happen. We're almost to the end. I have Totally Killer, which was one of my favorite movies I watched this year. It came out in October on Amazon Prime, and this is a horror movie, but it's like a time travel horror movie where it's about a girl who time travels to the 1980s to stop a massacre from happening to her mother's group of friends. So, like, her mother was a survivor of a massacre that had happened, and so she's always heard about it growing up, and her mother's kind of like overprotective about it. So she goes back in time to try to stop it from happening. And it was so fun. Like, I love a good slasher. I love a time travel story. So put those 2 things together and I am destined to love it. Like, that is exactly the kind of thing I like. And it was so much fun. And yet, again, like, really compelling characters that really pulled me into the story, and I absolutely loved it. And it's definitely going into my rotation of like what I'll be watching here on out every October. Then in October, we also watched The Fall of the House of Usher. This was Mike Flanagan's newest TV show. I love his work. I loved The Haunting of Hill House. I love Midnight Mass. I love The Midnight Club. So I was excited to see this, and it was so good. So if you like Succession and you like horror, this is the perfect thing for you. It's basically the same kind of concept as Succession. You're following this family of awful people, and you're watching terrible things happen to them. If you love Edgar Allan Poe, there are so many Easter eggs in this for you. They're all like, everything that happens to this family is based on Edgar Allan Poe stories. So it's just perfection. I thought it was beautiful. It was so good. The writing was spectacular. The storytelling was so good. The acting was great. Like, all of it. The whole thing was perfect. And then the last thing that we watched this year was The Crown. The last season is happening right now. So the first part of season 6 came out in November, and part 2 is coming out in sometime in December. I forget when. But we watched the first half and it was really good. We've been watching The Crown the whole time. It's been on. Like, my husband loves stuff like that. He loves to like watch shows about the monarchy and stuff. And like I said, I love me some British history. So of course we've been watching The Crown, and it's so much fun. It's so well done and so good. The acting is all really great. So this last season, I don't even know how far it's going to go in the second half, but this first half ends right after the death of Diana. So we're following like the weeks leading up to her death and what happens and how she died, and like how the rest of the family handles it. And it's so good. Like, I was in high school when that happened. This was what, 1997. So this was I don't know if it was going into my senior year, I think. I can't remember when this happened. I know it was in the summer. But like, this was happening when I was a teenager, so I was aware of it, but like so wrapped up in my own crap that I kind of didn't really pay attention to what was happening. But I knew about it happening because everybody did. So seeing it now portrayed this way is really good. So those are all the things that I loved watching in 2023. I don't know, I watch a lot of the same things over and over, so it's fun to talk about like new stuff that I liked this year. So yeah, I think if I had to pick a favorite, it's a tie between A Small Light and Glow and Daisy Jones and the Six. Those were like my top 3 of the whole year. I thought those were all really, really excellent. And yeah, let me know down below in the comments, what was your favorite show or movie that you saw in 2023? I would love to hear about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.